Welcome to the 313 Men, Money, and Marriage podcast. This is the podcast where facts, logic, and reasoning are at the forefront of every conversation. I am your host, Andrew Johnson, and in today's episode, we're going to be doing a part 2 from falling out of love with your spouse. There's 2 reasons why we're going to do a part 2. One is the part 1 did extremely well, numbers-wise, and people seem to be interested in this topic. And 2, when my guest found out about the show, he wanted to come back on and talk about this particular topic, this particular subject matter. So we're going to bring him on here shortly. But before we get to that, let me just talk about, if you listen to the first one, it goes through the objectives of basically some of the reasons why. That is more listed based upon some research things and interviews from different people. This one, we're going to be asking questions about it. So that's what's going to be the difference. First thing we obviously want to know is why something like this happens. Why does it happen? What causes people to, quote unquote, fall out of love, especially with a spouse? One thing that people often say is the, quote unquote, roommate syndrome. And everyone that I know that's been married has felt this at one point in time during the marriage. Kids, schedules, bills, sometimes will replace intimacy, meaning that you don't have the opportunity or time to spend just one-on-one with your spouse, and we all need this. Even if it's for a day or just an overnight trip somewhere, sometimes we just got to have that intimacy. So sometimes with juggling family life, work, and other responsibilities, that can get lost in your relationship. Resentment can build up. It's unaddressed anger that you may have can build a wall as the time passes by. And one of the risks to that is all resentment basically is, and you've heard us talk about this on the show before, it's unresolved anger. It's long-term anger. So things that have not panned out that way you might have thought they should have panned out pop up, and there you go, you have unresolved anger. I've seen an older couple that used to live near us in their 70s ended up getting a divorce, and resentment was one of the main reasons why, because it was just long-term unresolved anger that just reached a point to where the person just couldn't take it anymore. The other thing is the 7-year change here. They say that people change every 7 years. Ergo, you'll hear the first 7 years of marriage. After that, generally, some people say that's when you can start to have some problems, because after those 7 years, people go through different things. And if you can get through that area there, you'll be fine going forward. When I say fine, maybe it'll last longer than what you might think it should last or shouldn't last. But generally speaking, yes, that first 7 years is what people talk about the most. Then there's apathy versus anger. Sometimes the danger isn't in the fighting. What the fighting signifies a lot of times when you're married is that you still care about the person. There's something still there. When you don't fight, and that means sometimes you just stop caring. And so that's where it gets really dangerous when you're talking about falling out of love. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my guest back on. Everyone knows him. He's been on the show multiple times. He was just on the show a couple of weeks ago. Everybody give it up for Mr. Waymon Daniels. Waymon, how are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing great again today. Thank you for having me on, Andrew.
Absolutely. Waymon had asked when he heard the title of the episode that we did, and he listened to the episode, he says, I got to come on and talk about that particular subject matter. And I says, well, we can do a part 2 to it if you want, because I didn't feel like I got everything out that I wanted to talk about pertaining to that anyway, because it was a shorter podcast. And so I felt like, this is something that we can do a part 2 to. And so ergo, here goes Waymon. Waymon is doing quite a few things. If you listen to the episode we recorded a couple of weeks ago, at the end of the show, he'll tell you all about the stuff that he's involved in, how you can reach out and get in touch with him if there's something that he does that might interest you, and I'm pretty sure that there is. So just sit tight, and at the end of the show, he'll tell you everything that he's got going on, and just pay attention to that. But Waymon, I want to get right into the questions here, but before I do, sometimes in relationships, everyone talks about the spark, meaning that the sparks aren't there. But what I always tell people, and I mentioned it in the part 1 of this particular podcast, is that spark is temporary.
Right.
It's not a flame. So if you're relying on sparks to keep your relationship alive, it's doomed to fail. Mm-hmm. If you're looking for a level of excitement or different things like that, those sparks are just temporary fixes. Mm-hmm. The flame has to keep going. I mean, everything has to be stable. That flame has to continue to burn so that you can get through. The flame basically gets you through rough patches. The spark is just a temporary feeling of, basically a temporary high, basically. It's the
Mhm.
best way I could describe it. So, how much of this whole entire thing how much of this falling out of love is about the other person's actions versus your own internal changes? So, a lot of times we will break up with somebody or feel like we
Mhm.
want to break up with somebody or feel like we're falling out of love, but we're pointing to the other spouse about what they're not doing. But how much of it is it really us?
I think 100%. Well, I think maybe 100%, Andrew, because if we stop pointing the finger at other people and saying what they're not doing, but really looking at what we're looking at, right? Because I have to internalize something and then I have to come up with my own conclusion. So maybe I'm looking at it from a selfish perspective and not a mature perspective. Sometimes you got to put yourself in the other person's shoe and say, you know what, let me see what they're saying or what they're doing, and then relate it to how I'm perceiving what they're doing. But so many times we do the blaming game because we live in a society. I'd rather blame the other person than look at myself and the work that I need to do to make things better, if that makes sense.
It does, and I want to when you bring that up about being objective. When I was doing substance abuse counseling inside
Mm-hmm.
of the prison system, we used to make the inmates basically do what we call a camera check,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like looking through the lens of a camera. So I want you to kind of do an outer body experience and see what the issue is. And when you look through the camera and you're looking at yourself and say your spouse, whether you're arguing or you're distant or whatever the case may be, what's
Mm-hmm.
in the camera lens itself? And it's usually two people. So it's not just the person that's making you mad.
All
Where
right.
is your role in it? And that's how you can become objective, because now you see two people in lens, and what are the two people doing? If your partner is shutting down and you're reading that body language and then you shut down,
Right.
that's both of you
Mm-hmm.
behaving exactly the same way. You're just reacting.
That's true. That's true.
So that's why I say that camera lens, looking through through the camera lens, is a very objective approach to how to handle stuff like that. And so that's key. When you brought that up, it was a very good point. When those emotional sparks fade, what do you do if you feel guilt for being with a good person? So let's just say that you're a type of person who relies on the sparks. You're somewhat of an
Mm-hmm.
emotional person. Those sparks have now faded. And they always do. Just in any relationship, they're going to do. But the person that you're with is really a good person. If you feel that guilt, what do you do in that situation?
Well, again, you really got to look at revert back to that camera mode, right? Or even just Michael Jackson had a song, Man in the Mirror. I got to look at myself because if I'm basing my relationships off of a feeling and feelings are fleeting or fleeing, and I'm basing it off of how I feel or basically not about my commitment to this person and my love for this person, then I'm lost in the game already. So what you're doing, you are what you eat. If you eat a lot of emotion, you're going to react in emotions, right? And I often say this, Andrew, a person wants peace in their relationship, but they're in pieces themselves. So if I'm broken, I'm never going to be satisfied in a relationship until I address my issues and stop looking the outside in. But it's easier, again, to point the finger at other people than really look at myself and say, I really need to start working on me. Because that, you know, the person is good. So why are you sabotaging the relationship? Because you guys made a commitment to be together. And not only did you make a commitment, you guys vowed in front of other people through sickness and health, richer and poor. You made a covenant agreement. So you're telling me the vows that you made, you don't want anymore because of how you feel?
Absolutely. It's the lifestyle versus love.
Right, right.
You know what? Why did you take those vows? You know, it really is. I don't think, you know, it's so interesting you bring that up. I don't think sometimes when we talk about we getting married and we're doing all this stuff,
Hmm.
I think sometimes we don't realize that this is a lifetime commitment. And I
It
think
is.
people think that, oh, I can be married for a few years and then if it doesn't work, then oh well, I tried. No, you're making a lifetime commitment, and I think some people are they're no aware of it in the back of their minds, but they don't. I don't think that they are really taking it literally. You know,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
there's just more of a that's what they say you're supposed to do kind of thing. And so I think that can be a little scary to me. Like if you don't have that thought process, what you just described,
Hmm.
no, you can't because if you don't have that, this could be it could be marriage could be a really ugly thing. I mean, if you're not in it with
Hmm.
those intentions
Yeah.
that you're making a lifetime commitment, yeah, then I don't know if marriage is for you because
Well, not
that's what it is. Go ahead.
not only that. See, we watch television, we're watching these social outlets, and we're watching Bachelorette, and all this other stuff. And we're watching various shows and various things on TV, which is fairy tale. It's a script. And but we don't understand marriage is work. It's hard. No one wants to put in the hard work. They want it to be, hey Bob, how you doing? Welcome home. Here's your dinner. Oh baby, I had a great day at work. That's in some relationships that's real. But if you're looking for that type of relationship every single day, it's not going to happen. But when you understand that it's hard work and it's a partnership that we both have to work towards and agree to work towards, man, you're working now. I mean, when you go to a job, say for instance, you go to a job, every day is not Christmas. It's going to be some bad days and some good days, but you work every single day to get that check or to get that salary, no matter what. And you always show up when you're sick and when you're not sick because you got to provide. The same way in marriage.
Absolutely, and
Hmm.
that's so true. How do you distinguish basically a temporary rough patch
Hmm.
or just having a period of boredom in a marriage and the fundamental loss of romantic feelings? So, do you know how do you distinguish between the two? Because well, I guess the question I would ask you, I mean, that is the question, but are those lines blurry or are they very clear?
Well, it depends on the individual because how I define those things will be totally different from how you define them, right? And what you have to do when you're talking about this investment, we make investments in the stock market, we make investments in various other ways. But are we willing to make an investment within ourselves, not only ourselves, but even with our significant other, right? So when those lines tend to get a little blurry, I got to refocus the lens, Andrew, because I've been married for 5 years and I started listening to the naysayers, the winds, the television, and this, that, and the third. And I told my wife I want a divorce.
Yeah,
But when I refocused the lens, I'm like, yo, bro, you want a divorce because of what you're eating and what you're hearing. You have a beautiful woman. So what we started doing, and this is the God's honest truth, we started investing in each other. A lot of people say they believe in communication, but they really don't. Because you got to have those, like, can you imagine having that conversation with your wife, like, yo, I want a divorce. And she's sitting there saying, why? I love you. I don't want you to, I don't want to lose you and this, that, and the third. But then I have to get that pride out the way, Andrew, because we can be macho. I'm gonna be a stoic and I'm gonna stand on what I said. I want what I want, like a little child. Can I get my toy? And as we started to develop a pattern of being intimate, some intimacy in conversation, rough conversations, but then it started having some healthy conversations. Where me and her every day now, we started out just 15 minutes a day when the kids go to school, just sitting down having conversation. Now, as soon as they hit the door, hit the streets going to school, man, we talking all day because we had to build that back up. Because again, you can get so messed up with children, responsibilities, and your thinking gets convoluted with responsibilities. And then it takes a shift. And before you know it, you going south and you should be going north in your relationship. So you have to be you have to be aware of what's going on, but you have to be open to some conversations that might be unhealthy or might be troubling. and might be just a little rough to hear. And when I started doing those things, working on me to listen to what she needed and what she wanted, and then respond and say, you know what, I can give you that, because my job is to love her like nobody else could ever love her.
You know, most people, that last part that you just
Mhm.
said is what people miss when it comes to being married to someone, because you're going to be giving up in a lot of situations more than what you're receiving back. But we become so selfish that we think it should be the other way around. Like the marriage should be doing me a favor. Like I'm doing this because I'm getting some, I need to get the most out of this.
Right.
You know, I'm supposed to, I
Right.
deserve this because I did this, that, and the other. No, you have to give up a lot. And sometimes you're going to give up a lot more than what you're receiving. But if you look at it like a marathon race, you're just in a temporary period of time. As the time goes by, you
Right.
get more and things get better. And if you, that's what you should be looking at, not necessarily why you didn't get something right away or why, I'm not feeling something right at this moment in time. That person sitting next to you and that person, when y'all exchange those vows, have merged into one person. That's the best way I try to explain that to people. And you have to understand now, decisions that you make are now affects this other person.
It does. It does, Andrew. And I think about when you make this covenant agreement, like you said, a lot of people don't understand what you're actually agreeing to. I'm in agreement with her to serve her and only her. And she's in agreement to serve me. So if you're getting married and you're not ready to serve each other, again, you're losing again, because you don't understand the price that you have to pay, meaning I'm there for her and she's there for me. And I got to give up, because he says I have to die daily. I have to die daily to the old myths and the old adages that I was taught as a male. Men should do this. I never forget, I had somebody in my family, because I love my wife so much, called me a henpecked man. And I said, you know what? I'm glad you see me as a henpecked man. That means I'm doing something right.
You know what's funny about that? When a lot of people
Yeah.
start calling you names or they start saying different things about you and you're experiencing a level of success,
Yes.
that's envy.
That's envy.
Yes, that's
I
envy.
like it.
So even if it's family sometimes, nobody likes to look at somebody and see success if they're not having it. So sometimes that's what causes that. People will start to call you names or say different things about you. They'll call you all these things. You're a simp. You're this, that, and the other.
Right.
That's fine. You
Right.
continue to do what you're doing. I'm continue to do what I'm doing, and don't worry about what I'm doing. Just leave me
Right.
alone. I handle mine. You handle yours.
That's
And we'll
right.
just see where we end up. As the time goes by.
That's
But
right.
that's
That's right.
how I tell people. It's really nobody's. It's the only one's business. It is about how the relationship is growing and prospering or anything like that, or if it's even having struggle or setbacks. It's the people that's in it.
That's right.
Everybody else, unless you invite them in, are not invited,
That's right.
because your family are jumping your stuff and tear it up if you let them.
Oh, that's right.
If
That's
you
right.
let them, they will tear your whole marriage up, talking crazy. So it's best to be, you handle the problem with the person that you with. Is falling out of love considered a failure, or is it a natural evolution of changing? So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that's a failure if you're falling out of love?
I think a lot of people use that word like it's just something that has no meaning or has no value. I think that the reason that people use that word is because they're looking for an excuse to get out of a relationship anyway. I believe that people use it because, for one, or even the word divorce, because they don't like to be in an uncomfortable situation. Two, it's convenient. And three, it's easy for them to reject something because that's a societal norm, because they don't want to deal with the commitment. So when you live by those three adages that I just mentioned, but you don't live by the last one, which is the commitment to that work, then of course you're going to fall out of love. And that's the thing that we have to get to the place, because we no longer live based upon commitment. You got divorce court everywhere. You got Jerry Springer and all these other shows that people are just eating this nonsense. And then you got the 1% that when they get tired of a person, they marry 4 or 5 different people because they no longer have that itch for them. And plus, they're not looking the way that they want them to look. It's convenient. So when you look at convenience, it's not comfortable to be in a relationship where you're required to be accountable. You no longer want to be accountable to yourself or to your spouse. But again, like you said, that two becomes one. You have to start thinking and start working towards that and stop being so selfish and individualized. And so I think that that's what's happening now. I don't think people fall out of love. They just get tired. One gets tired of the other one. And just to be honest with you, or from my perspective, they just don't want it anymore. They're looking for a reason or an excuse. Because I believe that if you work and you love each other, and even if you go to marriage counseling, I've never been there, the first thing the marriage counselor would tell you is what brought you together. And when did you stop doing the things that brought you together and continue to do in your relationship? And then they would sit there and say, well, he's not doing this. But then they were asking that question, do you still love him? Yeah, I guess I still love him. But you're so quick to say, I want a divorce, instead of doing the things necessary to rekindle. You want to put out the fire instead of rekindling the fire. And that's that work again. Again, marriage is hard work. It's not easy, which you already know, Andrew. Listen, I talk to my wife now, and we can have a disagreement. And I mean, I'd be hot and she be hot. But I think about this. When you pick up a flower, do you pick it up being rough, or are you gentle with it because you don't want to break the leaves that's on the flower? When you start treating your spouse like that, if I can be gentle with the flower because it's beautiful and I love that flower and I love the fragrance of that flower, why can't I be sensitive to my wife and not damage her, but love her like no other? That way, when someone comes talking like Satan came to Eve in the tree, she won't listen to it. She'll be like, nah, man, I got somebody good at home, and vice versa. Well, what's happening is, but then I can get into the other part, but I'll let you go on from here.
No, that you were saying some good stuff there. I was just sitting in there listening and absorbing it. That was good. External pressures,
Mm-hmm.
such as career, whether it's career or career advancement,
Mm-hmm.
social media, and family, like we were just discussing. At times, they can, accelerate this emotional distance. So I guess the question I would ask you is, how do you keep that separate from your actual intimacy with your spouse?
Okay. Well, Andrew, this is true. I used to work, as I use the word past tense, I used to work 13, 14 hours a day. I go to work at 8, come home maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And my wife said to me, you don't have time for the family. I got a 7-year-old daughter. When I come home, she's asleep. When I get up, she's going to school. So I was missing all those valuable moments. And when you're talking about a marriage and you're talking about a job and a career, what's more important, your family or your marriage? Well, in my case, I gave that up. I left that job making good money 6, 7 months ago. But my relationship has grown even with my daughter and my wife. Like today, me and my 7-year-old, we went to the mall. I walk the mall every day. She says, Daddy, can I go? Now, if I would have been still working on the job, I would have missed that moment. So we're chasing a dream, or the American dream, to have the gated community, live in a gated community, drive this and have that. But we're chasing the wrong thing. We're investing in those things to look good, or to put up a stereotype or a look. But we're not doing it in our homes, man. Our children are missing their fathers. I was talking to a kid the other day. His mother works 3 jobs. Come on, bro. How much can you have? How much do you need? But the child is lacking, a 14-year-old kid, right? And then you got, well, here's that thing. The flame will go out, Andrew. If I'm working 14 hours and I'm not giving my spouse the attention that they need, or she's not giving me the attention that I need, but we're so focused on careers, then, bro, we just left room for outside entities. Because if I'm spending all this time doing all this and she's doing that, when that whisper comes, because she's spending more time with the whisper than she's spending with her spouse, who are they going to listen to? So to answer your question, we have to be willing to invest in the relationship. more so than anything in the world, because guess what? When you get old and you can't work anymore, all you got is each other.
That's it. You know, it's funny you say that when you were talking about that. We don't a lot of times we don't really think about it, but we chase after all of these things, whether it's career advancement, different things,
Mm-hmm.
so we can add to our stuff material wise. So sometimes I remember hearing a woman say, yes, we're building this big giant house and it's for my children. And it's not for your children, it's for you.
It's
You
for you.
want it. Kids don't care. They don't care what the kids, if they just have their own little things and stuff, they could care less what size house you buy. They don't care how big it is. All of that stuff is you using that as a reason to go out there and earn more stuff. That
Right.
stuff is going to make you feel good for a short period of time. You know, they say that newness wears off,
Right.
you know, maybe 4 or 6 weeks. And then it's like it's no longer new anymore. You know, whether you get a car or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be, just you settle into it and you just start saying, oh, well, this is what it is.
That's right.
And that's it. And you just go back to grinding and doing all this stuff. There were times before I retired from the prison system was, you know, there were days where I had to work overtime and I was putting in 16-hour days. And those days I knew I wasn't going to see anybody
Right.
because by the time I got home, everybody was asleep. And by the time I got up, you know, with maybe about 5 hours of sleep or so, I got to go back and do the same thing again. And so I might run and passing through your family maybe once or twice, you know, you might get maybe 10, 15 minutes and then that's it. You're gone. And then
That's
there's
it.
no more. So there's a lot to that. You have to learn how to balance that. You know, we all want to do better for our families and we all want to, you know, help them out as best we can. But a lot of times money is not going to solve all of the problems, you know.
That's right.
Last question I want to ask you before we wrap up. If you're going through this thing and you think that you have fallen out of love, is it possible to fall back in love if the core respect is still there? So you still respect the person, but you feel like you fall out of love. Is it possible to fall back into love?
Well, I look at a relationship as an account, which I call a relationship account. It will be hard to fall back in love if your spouse does nothing but make withdrawals from the account. Emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. If they're steady making withdrawals, sooner or later you're going to have insufficient funds. And it's hard to come back from that because now you're in debt to your feelings, to your emotions. You become callous, you become numb, that you're not open to that love that you say you want because this person has made so many withdrawals, has taken so much from you. But if you're willing to have that conversation, an adult conversation, and really invest in saying, you know what, our relationship is worth saving. Let me hear everything that I put you through, and let's start making a positive deposits back into our relationship. And once you start doing that, I believe you can stay in love or you can fall back in love. It's not that you've fallen out of love. It's just that you have become callous because of all the negative withdrawals. And so like you have to have a financial coach to help you get your credit back. I got to have a coach, which is it can be God, it can be counseling, but also it can be information, reading books, watching some podcasts on how to rebuild a relationship, because it's never too late until the person's in the ground. As long as we're breathing and we both want this, but I'm afraid to trust you again because, again, you don't made so many withdrawals. You made withdrawals, I made withdrawals. I'm tired of fighting you. I want to fight for us, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does, and I couldn't have said it better myself. We're about to wrap up, and I want to say thank you to the audience to continue to support this humble podcast as we continue to go through. We stay away from the coonery and buffoonery over here, and we just try to give you stuff that can self-improve. You can get self-improvement and self-develop. The show does have a web page. The link is always in the show notes. You can click on that web page if you want to talk or ask me a question. There's a microphone at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. You click that microphone. You talk right into it and tell me what it is that you want to see different, or is there something that you want me to do that I haven't done yet? In addition, you can also get on the email list and subscribe. You get on that email list. You can also ask questions through there, and you get to find out what episode will be coming out in the future of the show. You get an advance notice. In addition, there's an Instagram page called The 313 Men Money Marriage, all one word. You can go in there and see clips of previous shows and pictures of past guests. The YouTube channel is called The Men, Money, and Marriage Hour. This particular episode, full-length episode, will be posted up on the YouTube channel, The Men, Money, and Marriage Hour. Come check that out. Like and subscribe to help us grow. We are slowly but surely building the channel. No hurry. I'm just slowly but surely being meticulous about it. And so that's what we're going to plan on doing and going ahead in the future. Waymon has some information he wants to share with the audience. So Waymon, it is all of your show, your stage. Go, you have at it.
All right, guys. My name is Waymon Daniels, which you already know. I have a business called Open Mic Communication, which deals with personal development that leads to leadership. So a lot of the stuff that you heard today or tonight was some of the stuff that I facilitate. I do workshops. I also come to organizations to talk about these things. My phone number is 585-524-9997. 585-524-9997. You can reach me on every social media outlet. Just type my name, Waymon Daniels. You can also email me at openmicommunications5@gmail.com. Again, call me, email me. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about possibly coming to your organization and do some workshops and presentations. Thank you.
All right. So we're about to wrap up. And like I said, continue to support the show, support Waymon and his endeavors and everything that he's doing. And until we meet again, we are out.
Peace, everybody.